They don't care about us. They don't stand with us. They don't fight with us. I am trans.
Wait, what? You've got a lot of nerve, young lady, and I am going to go on a bit of a rant because this person has a lot of nerve trying to come for me in any way while they're putting on trans face, trying to pretend that there's something that they're not.
And we can get into who's really trans later.
And yes, I said trans face, and I will continue to refer to non-binary as being trans face. I'm not playing non-binary. I'm not feeding non-binary. I'm not humoring non-binary. All of that is off the table. And to people like this young lady or that young man that we saw the other day arguing with Blair White about I don't know what with the rolled up condom on his head, the deal is I'm not humoring you. Find your audience and badger them and hope that they'll humor you. I am not the one. I'm a person that really is in support of trans people, but when I say trans people, I mean transsexual. I'm not talking about transgender because I think a lot of these people are searching for an identity and they think they found it and pretending to be something that they're not. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. As always, I'm going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to comment just to help me on the algorithm and you don't know what to comment, just leave a knife because I would come for my own neck if I didn't respond to this stupidity. Here's the deal, you guys. So we're going to listen to this woman read me on what it is I'm doing wrong on TikTok, and we'll discuss what she has to say about me bit by bit. And then I'll play the entire video, which is only about 1 minute, that she was so upset about and I was so out of line for, and I'm mocking and whatever else she's about to say in this video. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I am hotter than fish grease. And to her, I would say,
you got the right one, baby.
Here we go. And then you wonder why trans people are unaliving themselves at alarming rate.
This is an example of how fucking cis people want to use their fucking trans experience and trans trauma for fucking entertainment. You don't care about fucking trans people, and any cis person that uses trans trauma and trans issues for entertainment, for coins and views, and for likes.
If I were doing this for likes, I would get more likes and I would be more popular, especially in the mainstream. If I agreed with all of the things that you're saying, that would be more lucrative to me. Technically, taking the stance that I've taken has not helped my career. It's hindered my career. If you notice, there are less talented people, and yes, I am very talented at what I do. I am the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. For a reason. You talk to people in my industry, they'll tell you I really am that good at what I do. It's not just me tooting my own horn. But I would be further along if I would just say the things people want me to say. But that's not where my heart is. That's not going to help the people I know out. So I ain't doing it, Mary. Sorry to burst your little non-binary bubble. If you want to know why I talk about trans people so much, it's because some of my best friends have been, and always will be trans. And I'm tired of seeing people like this person, an activist in the
To us LGBTQPIA+
community, make it seem like these people that I've been friends with for so long are trying to do something that they're not trying to do and trying to say something that they're not trying to say. I've been hanging out with trans women since I first came out. Some trans women, Native American trans women, were some of the first people I met. They were super cool. They told me what it was to be transsexual because that's what the term was transsexual. Trans was sometimes used as a shortened version, but we would just say transsexual in a lot of cases. They told me the difference between being a transsexual and a drag queen.
When a straight man puts on a dress and gets his sexual kicks, he is a transvestite. When a man is a woman trapped in a man's body and has the little operation, he is a transsexual.
I know that.
When a gay man has way too much fashion sense for one gender, he is a drag queen.
And so I know these bitches so well, and I know their stories so well, that I'm not going to have anybody tell me what I do and don't know or what it is I'm doing. I have been having their backs and yes, fighting for them, standing beside them while we were taking a lot of heat since before you ever thought anything was different about yourself. So I refuse to have somebody that's putting on trans face tell me where it is I stand with the trans community and why it is I do the things that I do. The reason that I speak up is because a lot of my friends have moved on to better jobs, living better lives. They no longer have to do work, so they can't risk that by saying things that are against the
2S LGBTQPIA plus
narrative, which if they do say something that's against the
2S LGBTQPIA plus
narrative, they will get canceled and people will call their jobs and tell them that they're hateful and find out as much information as they can possibly find out about them. And these are people that represent themselves as being pro-trans. But a trans person, an old school trans person, says they don't agree with something, even if they say it in a very polite way, they're going to try to ruin their lives. So you're telling me you're pro-trans, but you won't listen to trans people on trans issues. Because the truth about most of the non-binary people that they don't want to acknowledge is that most transsexual people would tell them person to person, if they had a chance, you are not trans. Our struggles are different. So let her go on now.
It is for entertainment. They don't care about us. They don't stand with us. They don't fight with us. I am trans.
You say in another video,
my sex I was assigned at birth is female.
Looking at you, you're living as a female, but
my gender is non-binary. It's different than my sex.
And
that makes me trans.
So I'm supposed to think you're the same as my friends that are trans women, sometimes literally putting their lives in danger to outwardly express who it is they are on the inside. Every time they meet a guy that's attracted to them, that could turn into a dangerous situation. Sometimes, and it's changed a lot now, but back in the 90s, there would be times when we'd end up in dangerous situations where we were just trying to do things like go to Walmart. One day it was at a tanning salon. I brought one of my friends with me to a tanning salon, one of my best friends, and they started talking about her in a negative way. Everywhere we went could turn into a dangerous situation. And it wasn't uncommon and nobody had our backs. So to make it sound like I haven't been part of this fight or I'm just doing this for likes, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And maybe you should learn who you're talking to. And for the people that are going to say, you just had trans friends so that you can tokenize them, I've been hanging out with trans friends for the last 30 years. Trans has been popular in the mainstream for maybe the last 10 years. So did you think that I was preemptively holding on to these bitches, hoping one day that I would be able to tokenize my friendship with them? So 20 years later, my ship finally comes in, and instead of taking advantage of it and saying all the things that I'm supposed to say, instead that's when I decide to fumble it. And I'll also have you know that all of the trans friends I had before are still my friends now, and none of them think the things that I say. And yes, they do watch my social media. Once in a while they'll comment. None of them think there's anything wrong with the things I'm saying. I never get hit up by them with them telling me that I'm transphobic or I'm saying something that's out of line. Actually, I'll bring up stories and they're like, yeah, I remember when that happened. Or really, they tease me because they like to call me a woman too. It's true. They're the worst. Let her go on. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting again.
And no, you're doing more hurt. You're mocking, not only you're mocking mental health, you're mocking people who have unalived themselves. You're mocking even cis people who have unalived.
Okay, I'm going to play the video for you guys in just a second. That's me mocking people unaliving themselves. But understand that this is what she's talking about. So put a pin in that. In your mind, a little bit of a bookmark. Let's let her continue with her drivel.
This is all for drama for you. This is all entertainment for you. You don't care about trans people. You're not only you hurting disabled people that have unalived themselves.
I don't mention disabled people at all. I don't think I've ever mentioned disabled people on my channel unless it was a news story that I was talking about that had a disabled person in it. But I don't talk about disabled people on my channel. This is just her grasping at straws.
Not only you mocking queer people who have unalived themselves.
Queer people, I'm going to be honest. I'm not a part of that community. It's not my thing, but I haven't mocked any of them unaliving themselves.
Trans people who unalive themselves. And any other minority who unalive them. Women who unalive themselves.
I don't even talk about women in that particular clip. As a matter of fact, if you notice on my channel, there are two groups that I really advocate for, and that is women as well as trans people. And yes, for me, trans is transsexual. And until recently, there hadn't been a conflict in advocating for those two groups. It was only recently when the activists got involved that certain people started saying that being a trans woman is exactly the same as being a biological woman. And then it was was when the non-binary got involved that it really started to confuse things, because not even being a trans person was its own thing at that point. And so that's the reason that I advocate for those two groups so much, is because in a lot of cases, those two groups have been shit on for a long time in society and recently have started getting treated more and more equally. And then when that started happening, then activists started coming in and causing problems between those two groups and making those two groups think that they're actually against each other, when really they're two separate things. They don't have to be the same thing. They don't have to be in competition. You notice when it comes to trans men and biological men, we don't have that. Trans men aren't trying to say that they're the same as biological men, because we all know that's not true. Just like trans women are different from women. And when it comes to the cis thing, I'm very clear about that not needing to be a thing, because it just doesn't need to be a thing. If you change to something different, then you adopt the prefix. The rest of us that have been fixed where we're at aren't going to adopt a prefix because it makes you feel more comfortable, especially when, like I said, it's the activists that are making these problems. And that's why, if you notice, on my channel, I'm always very clear about saying that I stand against the activist. I never say on this channel that I'm against trans people in general, but as far as different groups and stuff like that, I think everybody should have their rights, and I think everybody, including this buffoon, should continue to stay alive. I am not at all advocating for people to literally unalive themselves. I do a joke about that. It's great though. But in that joke, it's actually an extended, and in the second part, I actually talk about how anti-unaliving yourself I am and why that is, but it's got its own punchline, and it's all part of a bigger picture with me. So the people that try to boil it down to I'm this and I'm that, you don't know anything about me. I'm comfortable with that. I'm fine with it, but I will make content out of it.
You're literally doing this for entertainment, to get your coins and your likes and your views, and you're literally doing this of trans trauma and trans experience for your entertainment. And this is why cis people want to, the only reason cis people talk about trans issues and trans experience is and use that trauma to do it.
Okay, she keeps using the term cis, which I'm not a fan of the term cis, but at the same time, I will say she is basically a cis person herself. And that's what I was getting at earlier when I got a little bit distracted, is that the people that I know in certain cases are risking their lives to express themselves as the person that they feel that they are. And when people say there's a difference between trans people and biological women, biological men, I 100% agree and understand that. But my friends know that they're dealing with something different. My friends know that they are something different. So that's not really a struggle or a fight that I'm having with anybody in my personal circle. And it's part of the reason that if you notice in my comments, you'll see other biological men and women that are maybe a little more extreme being like, why would you refer to a person that's clearly a man as being a woman? And it's really because when it comes down to it, anybody that respects me, I'm going to respect. And the entire trans community as a whole has not disrespected me. Technically, trans people have been some of the most important people in my life and taught me, just by living as themselves, how to not care about other people, how to understand other people's opinions don't matter. What matters is me being me and me being the most genuine version of me that I possibly can be, no matter what the outside world says. So that's why when other biological people come for me and they're like, well, why won't you just call them a man? Or why won't you just call them a woman? Because I'm not here to disrespect people like that. You get on my nerves, I'll disrespect the shit out of you. But if you're a respectful person and you just happen to be different in some way, I'm definitely not disrespecting you, especially because I think we're all f***ed up, to tell you the truth. You're f***ed up, I'm f***ed up, they're f***ed up, everybody's f***ed up. And so it's just finding the levels of f***ed up that you can deal with and jive with your f***ed up that you end up hanging out with and being friends with. So that's where I'm at on that.
Is for entertainment.
And then okay, so now let's listen to the video that I made that supposedly was so egregious and mocking everybody. But before we get to that, let's take a minute to talk about our sponsor, redpillthreads.com. Red Pill Threads is a brand that goes against the mainstream narrative. On their site, you will find t-shirts, coffee mugs, and hoodies. But they're not just t-shirts, coffee mugs, and hoodies. They're conversation starters that will attract like-minded people and repel the people you never wanted to talk to begin with. An added bonus bonus to shopping redpillthreads.com is that 10% of all proceeds go to Operation Underground Railroad, which is an organization that fights child trafficking. And what kind of monster would you be not to want to help fight child trafficking? Anyway, during the holidays is the perfect time to wear your Red Pill Threads gear. Like, say it's Christmas and you got to deal with your blue hair niece that identifies as a they and a them, and you would prefer to think of her as a what and a who. Maybe break out your okay groomer tee like the one I'm wearing right now, and then you don't have to have that uncomfortable conversation with her about how you don't think kids should be at drag shows, because she'll already know. On the other hand, family members that agree with you, probably her parents, will know that you're a safe space, as the kids would say. The beauty of Red Pill Threads is it lets you say it without saying it. So if you support the channel and you support what I'm doing over here, go support redpillthreads.com. That's redpillthreads.com. Use promo code TIE, all caps, for 10% off. That's promo code TIE, THAI, in all caps for 10% off. Check out redpillthreads.com. And then you wonder why trans people are unaliving themselves at alarming rates? Is it because I'm telling them that you should love yourself enough that nobody else's opinion matters? Or is it possibly because trans activists are telling them that you should care what every single person thinks about you, and anytime somebody misgenders you, that's an unimaginable victimization that you can't possibly live through? Everything is something that people should have a reason to unalive themselves about, according to the trans activist. What I would tell other LGBT people, if other LGBT people want to listen to me, is take unaliving yourself 100% off the table. Nobody is worth that. I stand by every single word I said in that clip. It's part of a bigger video. I'm not going to play more clips from that video because that 1 minute that you just heard is what she was responding to. So there's no other context that's needed as far as I go. That's what she was responding to. To break it down for you, in case anybody doesn't understand, I'm saying that you should not give any person that much power over you. You should not give any other person's opinion that much power over you. You should be you, and people feel how they want to feel about it, and whether they like it or not, or whether they respect it or not, you just completely take unaliving yourself off the table. Nobody is worth that. I don't know how that's considered a harmful statement. I also say that trans activists make it seem like everything should be a reason for you to unalive yourself, which to me, that's the toxic message. And it's even toxic that trans activists use trans kids or trans people in general unaliving themselves as leverage to make the outside world do the things that they want the outside world to do. Even if you feel like the things you're asking for or the accommodations you want made are very important, that's still not the way to go about it. To me, it's like the person that a lot of us have dated in our lives, and hopefully people are more healthy than this now, but people from my generation, a lot of us dealt with dating people that were like, if you break up with me, I'm gonna unalive myself. And to me, when trans activists try to use that as leverage, I feel like that's the same kind of situation. And I feel like trans activists and supposed trans allies, when they say that these are the reasons that trans people are gonna unalive themselves if you don't do the things we're asking for, is just as bad as if you came to me and said, my boyfriend is saying he's gonna unalive himself if I break up with him, and I said, but it's only because he really loves you. That's the reason he's saying that. So maybe you should consider doing what it is he's asking of you, since you don't want him to unalive himself, right? No, that's not the way you get things done. If you want change, maybe you should have your people stay alive so that maybe they can tell other people their stories and what it is they're dealing with, and that's really the way that we should go at it, instead of being like, these are all the reasons trans people have to unalive themselves. Do you ever think maybe you're giving some of these trans people reasons to unalive themselves, and they're starting to feel justified because you as an activist or as an ally are telling them that these are legitimate reasons? I'm a person that's saying that there are no legitimate reasons to unalive yourself. Even people like this that clearly have too much time on their hands and want to make situations out of things that aren't situations and want to appropriate struggles that aren't their own because they otherwise don't have personalities. They otherwise don't have an identity. Really, I feel sorry for you that this is what you're doing with your time. And I'm not going to share this person's handle on TikTok because I don't want anybody to bully them. I don't feel like that's the way to go about this, and that's not the point of this. For me, the point of this is just pointing out how unhinged some of these people are, and the fact that they come after me, upset with me about things that I say, which I consider to be very empowering, and me helping with my advice, and not from an outsider's perspective, but from a person that when I was younger dealt with depression and felt like at different points I should unalive myself. So I'm telling you, take that off the table. That's what I did. I brainwashed myself. I talk about it on stage sometimes, just how I repeated it like a mantra, except for I say the actual word that we're not allowed to say here on YouTube, that is the shortened version of unalive yourself. But I would say in my head over and over, unaliving yourself is not an option. Unaliving yourself is not an option. Unaliving yourself is not an option. And I really, just between that and learning to look at things in a different way, and my small dog that you just saw walk by, Bijou, is also a part of my support system when it comes to that. Working out is a part of what keeps me out of depression. I've talked about that, how working out is my meds. But find your concoction. Find your cocktail. Also, if that turns out to be prescription medication that you genuinely do need. I have friends that are severe bipolar. I have friends that are schizophrenic. I have friends that legitimately need to be on medication in order to keep their minds right. I am 100% in support of that. And I am 100% in support of taking the stigma off mental illness, whatever your mental illness may be, because I feel like that's a huge part of getting people to understand that it is okay to take your meds. It is okay to talk to a friend if you think that something's wrong. It is okay to feel okay, even if technically you're not okay. So tell me in all of that how I'm being negative. Tell me in all of that how it is I'm saying anything that's at all mocking. To me, mocking is pretending to be something that you're not when you have to know that you're really not. And I wouldn't have even talked about this person if she hadn't mentioned me on TikTok, because she was upset about that 1-minute video that you just saw. And then I decided to check out her mention of me because TikTok lets you know. And then I looked at her page just to see what kind of person I was dealing with. And her entire page is dedicated to her pretending to be trans and her pretending to understand what it is trans is like. And when I was referencing my friends and talking about them risking their lives, they risk their lives to express themselves fully as the person that they know that they are, while this person and others like her wear their trans underneath their clothes. You look like a woman. You talk like a woman. To the outside world, you present as a woman. But you say that you're trans and you try to act like people like me are the ones that are mocking trans people. No, madam. You're the one mocking trans people. You're the one not understanding that that isn't your struggle, that that isn't just a personality that you put on or a character you put on. I personally do occasionally get kind of down. My sister died on Halloween several years ago. And every time this time of year, I get very down. I don't mistake that for being the same as the clinical depression that some of my friends go through, that they actually need medication for. I've told you guys I myself can identify as trans because I could be considered non-binary because of the way my brain works. I don't identify as trans because I know that that's not true and genuine to what it is I am and what it is my struggle would be. I know that my kind of crazy is its own thing. I know that what I'm dealing with is something completely different. I am a bit of a toxic person. I'm not going to dismiss it as borderline personality disorder, so it sounds like I'm going through something bigger than I am. No, I'm just kind of an asshole sometimes. And some of the people that are identifying as these things need to accept that they too are just kind of an asshole sometimes. So be an asshole all you want. Continue to live your life the way you want to, but I'm not going to pretend you're trans when you're not trans. I'm not going to pretend you're part of a struggle that you're not part of, and I'm not going to listen to you tell me what it is I am and am not allowed to say when you're presenting yourself as something that you are not. You do better, you be more genuine, you be more authentic, and then you come back and work on me. But I'm going to warn you, it's going to be quite a job. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.